Greetings and salutations. Welcome to episode number 135 of RefTheDistrict. We are a proud member of the Believe Network. I'm the Stoner. To my left is Trevi. That's to your right, to my left. Trevi, what's up?
Chilling, man. How we doing?
All right. Hey, Trev, did you know that last week, I believe it was, that we had a couple people comment about the way you were when you were introduced, when Nathan introduced you, and you were like, yeah, thanks for having me. And everyone was like, why is Trev acting like he's a guest or something on the show? He's a co-host, for crying out loud.
I don't know. Just something to say.
I know, right? You were caught off guard a little bit.
A little bit.
Yeah, and then you might see a new face down there right below Trevi. That is from the award-winning, and I say award-winning because we've given them an award, the award-winning Authentic and the Beard. It is the Beard from the best television show not on television. What's up, Beard?
Pleasure is all mine. It's great to be here. You guys know I'm a huge fan of what you guys do here, what you guys have been doing here. I've been watching these guys for a very, 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 very long time. I want to say, like, when you guys were like probably had like way under 1,000 subscribers, maybe like a couple of hundred, and it's every time I come on, I always stress like it's amazing to have people like this in the community, and make sure you guys show them all the love that they deserve because they put in a lot of work. I think a lot of people don't really realize how much work goes into these shows, whether it be prepping for, the actual content of the show and then the back end of everything. So it's a lot of work. So I always want to stress that, I'm super fortunate to, be friends with you guys. I always love coming on. I'm super happy and proud of what you guys have gotten to already, and the sky's the limit. So definitely always want to, express that feeling first and foremost when I hop on here. So thank you guys for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep, and we appreciate that, and we say it all the time too, both publicly and privately, that when we started in this space, that we were looking for shows to emulate, and we latched on to Authentic and the Beard. We love everything that you guys do over there. The chemistry is fantastic. The production value is beyond anything, something that we're always striving for, and so you guys do fantastic. So please head on over to YouTube for Authentic and the Beard, and you will not be sorry. Hit them up, sub them up, and everything.
Sub them up. I like that.
Sub them up. That's what the kids say. I like to say what the kids say.
I noticed you're pretty hip to the lingo of the kids these days.
Hey, if there's one thing that people call me, it's hip. I am hip.
There we go.
Yeah, so of course, let me take care of a few things here. As we were talking about, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, and the notifications. We're out here all the time, as Beard was saying. We have content every single day of the week. And let me just tell you what we do during football season. On Sundays, we do a live watch party. You come by and watch the game with us, play-by-play, reactions, analysis, all that. Mondays, we have our day after reckoning. Tuesdays, we have our daily Commanders update. Wednesdays, just like right now, we do our live show at 7:30 p.m. on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. Thursdays, we have our daily Commanders update. Friday, daily Commanders update. Saturday, we have our preview show for the game on Sunday. So we've got content all the time, and we want everybody to check it out. And so hit that like button and the notifications. Of course, we appreciate that. We've already got a few people in here getting ready for this Commanders talk. We've got real peoples in the house. Clifton Taylor's here already. Nicole Williams, she's always very early. We appreciate Nicole. Calvin Matthews is in here, so and we'll keep hitting all those people as they start coming in here. We appreciate all of you. Later on in the show, we're going to talk about the Bengals, a preview of the Bengals game that's on Saturday night, 6:05 p.m. So we'll talk a little bit about that, what we expect to see. And, of course, in the game, we're going to talk about all about the Commanders, today's practice, all the practices so far, training camp, all of that good stuff. But right now, in the warm-up, we're going to talk a little bit. We're going to wrap up the Ravens game because we haven't had a chance to talk to either one of you about it. It was only a couple of days ago. And then before we do that, of course, the warm-up is brought to you by Don't Sleep Energy. Don't Sleep Energy Drink is the official energy drink brand of Ref the District. Don't Sleep supports those who believe in themselves. Head on over to dontsleepenergy.com. Pick up their regular or sugar-free energy drinks or some cool swag. They've just changed their logo, so it's really good stuff. You can find them on Amazon, but the best thing to do is to go to dontsleepenergy.com. Use the code RefTheDistrict, get 10% off your entire order. All right, got all that out of the way. And oh, by the way, Nathan's not here. He's got some school stuff with his kids. He was telling me about it. I was like, school, Ref the District. I mean, come on. Where are your priorities?
Come on.
Come on. Yeah, school's starting, so he's got I think his kid's 9 or 10 years old, so he's
which is crazy to me, by the way. I just wanted to make sure that I put this out here because all these kids are going back to school.
Yeah.
I'm like, did I miss my mortgage payment because it's not September. It's August 23rd. We used to go to school after the holiday. It's Labor Day, right?
Always.
Yeah. So I don't know what I mean. Hey.
And then I think at one point, I don't know if they ever got this law through, but Larry Hogan in Maryland anyway tried to make a law that says you cannot start school until after Labor Day. Because all the businesses like on the Eastern Shore and Ocean City and all that, they weren't getting the business up until Labor Day because everyone was back home getting their kids back to school. And so he was like, you got to stop doing that to these businesses. But I don't know if it ever got through or not.
I don't think so because I'm pretty sure they're back in school already.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's get to this. Let's talk a little bit about the Ravens game. And I'm going to start with you, Beard, because you were actually at the game. And there was a lot of talk about the energy within FedEx Field for a preseason game. I believe the announced crowd was 54,000 something. And if you're wondering, last year, the Jacksonville game, the first game of the regular season, I believe the announced crowd was 58,000 some odd. So there was 54,000 for a preseason game. What was the energy like there?
So I mean, first off, definitely when Authentic and I were in the stadium, I looked at him and I said, "Man, it is packed in here." And he was like, "Yeah, it looks like a regular season game." And in my mind, I'm like, it looks like a regular season game pre, new ownership and post new ownership preseason. So I guess it's a good sign for the season moving forward as far as the interaction with the fan base and with this post Dan Snyder era. But the energy in there was electric. Obviously, this is the first preseason game at home this preseason. It's the first home event with actual football since the new ownership. You got the Sam Howell sort of energy going there, Eric Bieniemy, which I'm sure you guys will hear me talk about ad nauseum throughout this broadcast. That is, in my opinion, the biggest move in the offseason. I think
the entire NFL.
I mean, not definitely here. Entire NFL, I'd say it's top 5 for sure. I think there's some other players that moved around. Obviously, Aaron Rodgers. I think the Darren Waller to the New York Giants is going to be down the road here, one of the biggest transactions in the offseason. But Eric Bieniemy, I think being here is bigger than the new ownership. That's how big it is to me. Like, I think the new ownership is going to be something that is, going to be down the road. You'll see it as the season progresses, as the first 3 years progress. But immediately, Eric Bieniemy being here is the biggest change for this team and this franchise moving forward. So I think if you put all that together in this Monday night, you're the only game on. You're in prime time, albeit preseason. You're going against the Ravens, the Beltway sort of situation. For those of you that don't know, I am an Orioles fan, so
I don't like that.
So for me, I'm one of the last dying breeds of Commanders and Orioles fans. So you have that aspect of it. You had the streak on the line. So it was just everything, all of the pieces. It was pure fuel being thrown onto this fire of this fan base that kind of made everything, work. And I think that, the play on the field was there too. Like the offense started off running the ball early on. So you kind of like were like, oh, they ran the ball. Like, I'm gonna
Boring,
say
yeah.
it was like the first 3 players or so, and then when Authentic and I were in the car leaving the stadium, I was like talking about Sam Howell's stat line, and I said I think he threw the ball 25 times, and Authentic's like 25 times. I'm like, so like yeah, you kind of think about it, and I know that there's a lot of talk between the Baltimore fan base and Washington fan base, and a lot of talk. Apparently, there was a lot of mentioning of the streak on the pregame show.
Oh,
on
absolutely.
TV.
It flooded the pregame shows.
So it's almost like and then people were like, oh well, I started seeing Twitter and hearing all this stuff, and people were like, oh well, it was against the 2s and the 3s and this
Right.
and that, and then a lot of people, I saw some Commanders fans upset. They thought it was embarrassing that we were celebrating, whether it was the players or the fan base. And I think that some people, I want to put this into perspective. So I think some people don't realize what is happening here. They're so engulfed in their own fandom and like, everything else that goes around the actual game. A lot of these guys who are playing in this game, whether it be, people fighting for their job or people in the 3rd and 4th quarter here where you win the game. Some of these guys are playing in an NFL experience for the first time ever.
Sure.
And in front of a home crowd for the team that they're trying to make. People dream of this moment for their entire life. What they think is, it's just a preseason, but it's so much more than that. So like, and when you're in a competitive nature, like when I played football, I played basketball, I played baseball competitively. So it's like whether it's a preseason game, an exhibition game, whether I'm playing at a pickup game, whether I'm playing bingo, my juices are flowing.
Sure.
It's natural for these guys to get excited when they're competing, and I think that that's important. And I think you have to look at things from a different level too. Like, yes, Sam Howell did all that against the 2s and the 3s, right? But I'm not looking for what Sam Howell did. I'm looking at how Sam Howell did it.
Sure.
Okay, so like I'm looking at the technique, I'm looking at the feet, I'm looking at the accuracy, I'm looking at all of those things. It doesn't matter if it's against the 2s, the 3s, the 1s. These are the things I'm looking at. So all that, wrapped up, it was an experience, and I was super fortunate to be there. Shout out to our guy Chris Peace who hooked us up with some tickets for that
Nice.
That event. So it was. I was very glad to be there, and the way that it ended, I mean, I posted a clip on my Twitter after the field goal, and it was
lit,
insane lit. Yes, it was, as the kids say.
Hip. This guy's hip.
It was insane. I mean, people were high-fiving. People were screaming. They were jumping. I mean, you saw the enthusiasm. This is not what we have been dying for as a fan base. Have we this sort of energy, this positive energy, a quarterback, hands down the best quarterback that we've had under the Ron Rivera era.
Hopefully. We're not there yet, but hopefully.
I mean, listen, hopefully, even if we're not there yet, right? I still think, and listen, I thought the Carson Wentz experiment had potential.
Sure.
I thought the Ryan Fitzpatrick, shout out to the guy who asked me if I was Ryan Fitzpatrick. I thought the Ryan Fitzpatrick thing had potential. You guys know I've never been a fan of Heineke. I mean, I appreciate what he did, but as a player, I was never excited about Taylor Heineke. And, I mean, then there's Josh Johnson and Mark Sanchez. And, I mean, even before Rivera.
Gilbert.
You can go for what's eating Gilbert Grape?
Yeah.
I mean, there is just so much going on. So I feel like it's almost like the fan base doesn't know what to do. Because they're still stuck. I see so much out there like, oh well, it's we don't know what's gonna happen with Sam, and I keep trying to tell people that the Eric Bieniemy, this is not Scott Turner's offense, okay?
Right.
Yeah.
So I think that there is a lot of things to be excited about, and I think that the Ravens game was just a prime example of what can happen here. I'm not saying we're going to go to the Super Bowl. I'm not, it's not saying anything like that. I'm not saying Sam Howell is going to win MVP and anything crazy like that. But it's a different feeling right now, and it goes beyond Dan Snyder being gone. It's different. There's a different
whole
energy
new vibe.
there. Yeah, so I'm excited.
And awesome. And Trev, I'd like to hear what you thought of, watching it from home or watching it from wherever you were, if you got that same vibe when you were watching.
Oh, for sure. I mean, it's not all the time where you have something to play for in the preseason. And like Beard was saying, some of these cats are playing an NFL experience for the first time.
Mhm.
It so happens to be to break the streak of the Baltimore Ravens, crosstown rivalry, battle of the Beltway, So I was over here cheering out loud, like, let's go. I was hyped when we kicked the field goal. Like, I don't care if it gets the 2s or 3s. I'm with Beard on that too. Like, I just want to see how we looked as a football team.
Sure.
And we looked like a football team. And it was really, really exciting to see, exciting to watch, exciting to witness. I was happy. I don't care if it's preseason or not. We had something to play for, and we got the job done. And it just so happened to be Josh Harris's first home game experience as a new owner. Like Beer was saying, like all those things that was the fuel that Beer was saying tied into that. It just made it a great experience, no matter where you're watching it from, at home or in the stadium. So.
Yeah, and let me ask you, Trev. Here's a question from our boy TJ, Too Nasty For You. He says he's wondering, is he the only one who hates that the national media is now getting on the bandwagon? We've seen it with just today, Booger McFarland was on it. Of course, Kay Adams with Kay Adams. Pat McAfee's all over the Commanders. Sean O'Hara, former Giants guy, all over. Do you like that everyone's kind of jumping on the Commanders bandwagon?
I am, because we're actually in the NFL headlines for football reasons and not out of the office off the football field reasons.
Yeah.
With the whole black cloud that was over us. So and people were crying that we weren't getting respect for not being nationally recognized when we had that a little winning streak or we were winning games with Taylor Heineke. But now that we have a different quarterback and we beat the Ravens and stopped the streak, made history. Whether it's preseason or not, we made history. Now they're like, oh, it's a bandwagon. And we're jumping on our bandwagon. I mean, we deserve to be excited about this because we look like a football team. We haven't looked like that in I don't know how long, probably since we won the division at 7-9 the COVID year, and that was not even that great either. So, I like the national attention. We've craving for it. We've come this far for it, so might as well time to have it.
And Beard, let me ask you this. There has been a lot of talk about this whole maybe Washington fans are getting a little too excited about beating a meaningless preseason streak. Now, we talked to former Ravens tight end Daniel Wilcox for our game preview from the Believe in Ravens show. And he said the streak isn't really a big deal, but winning game after game after game after game, what it does is it shows a culture. It shows a culture that that when you walk into, they call it the castle, right? When you walk into the castle at their training facility in Owings Mills, that the expectation is that you're going to win every single game, every single year. And we, of course, don't have that here in Washington or haven't had it for 30 years.
Yeah.
So do you have a problem, Beard, with the way fans have embraced beating Baltimore in a meaningless preseason game?
I don't necessarily have a problem with it, right? Because for me, it's not meaningless. I think Metaphor touches on it first, the best. He says meaningless. You ask those players whether it's meaningless, and I think that's the most important thing that we remember is that it's not meaningless. It might be meaningless in regards to your record moving forward in the regular season, sure. But meaningless, no way in this world is it meaningless because you're evaluating your talent. You're getting those reps. You got to remember, we got a new quarterback, we got a new offensive coordinator. These sort of things are important to do. Now, I don't think it has anything to. For me, it has nothing to do with the streak. I just think that's an added bonus. Like it's cool, right? Like I was there for that. Like I can say, hey, I was there when the Commanders snapped the Ravens, a winning streak. But I think you touched on it, the culture thing. I think that's so important because the Ravens have been known as a franchise that kind of has it together, whether it be from the way that they draft, the way that they're always in the mix in the playoffs. They've won a Super Bowl, within the year span that we haven't. The culture that they have built is something that I think a lot of franchises look at. The Ravens, the Steelers, Even the Patriots, I guess, to a certain extent,
Sure.
what the Chiefs have done now as of recent. These are San Francisco 49ers. These are all organizations that kind of have a known aurora about them in the way that they handle business. And I feel like, for us to kind of have this win in this moment, given the certain circumstances, I think it's very important. So you can be happy about that. Don't feel ashamed to be happy about that. Now, I'm not going to be like, running around town like, we beat the Ravens in the preseason and we ended their streak. I'm not going to be like that. But I think if you look at it from the grand scheme of things, the bigger picture, I think it was absolutely very, very, very important. I told somebody when I was arguing with them on Twitter about how, he was saying, this is an embarrassment. And I was like, this is like the complete opposite of an embarrassment. An embarrassment has been the way that we've played and everything that's happened with this organization. This is literally like what we have been. This is the stepping stone.
Right.
I'm hoping that this is what the foundation has built. And, I'm a big run the ball. I'm a big pound and like I'm a football guy, right?
Trenches,
so I love Doc Walker. And I listen. To me, Doc Walker and me are like, we're
two
we're the
peas in
same
a pod.
person. Exactly.
Yeah.
So like when I hear him talk about it, and he always emphasizes, not being soft and playing doing everything like everything is on the line. And I feel like people who approach the preseason where it's meaningless, they're not doing that.
Yeah.
And I feel like we've taken a different approach this year. People are like, when Terry McLaurin has the toe injury, they're like, oh my God, why was he playing in the first place and this and that? Like, he's playing because they're trying to they were in last place in the division last year. Okay. We're trying to build something here. This is not a place where you just don't play or, you take plays off or, I'm going to take a breather. No, we're trying to build something here. And I feel like by them playing the way that they did and playing their players, I feel like it's showing not only the fan base, but the league. This is not the Washington Commanders of past. This is a brand new page that we're writing right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And I look at it this way. Is it meaningless? In a way, it is meaningless. It's meaningless in that it has no bearing on what's going to happen with their regular season record. However, in the context of playing that game, and as you both mentioned, when you're going out there and you're competing and you're fighting, you want to win the game. It's really that simple. But I think if you look at some of those guys who are out on that field, not the guys who are not going to be here, who were playing in the fourth quarter, a lot of those guys, but the guys who were playing early on and the guys going to be here, they may have just gained a little bit of mental edge, maybe a 1%. Maybe it's only a 1% or 2%. You guys are both gamblers, right? You get a 1% or 2% advantage on the house. That's a huge advantage when it comes to, again, this whole culture and trying to win. And if they get that, maybe that little 1% carries over into the regular season and helps them. It's a whole culture. It's a mental culture and mindset of how these guys are preparing each and every day. If you look at, I'm just going to use a guy as an example, Jeremy Reeves. At the end of that game, he was super happy that they got the win. Just think of how he would have been if they had lost. What if they had lost 27-3 and guys had played the same way that they had played, but they got blown out 27-3? You can't tell me that wouldn't be a disadvantage to them. So it's an advantage to go out there and compete and do well and win in that moment. You're not going to go 17-0. You're not going to go 14-3 just because you won this game. But it will give you a little bit of advantage. And I just kind of think that as fans, we tend to forget what culture and what a winning mindset can do for your team.
That's it right there. What are we trying to do? We're trying to build a winning mentality, right?
Exactly.
What do you have to do in order to build a winning mentality?
Win, I think.
You got to win.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You got to win.
That's right. So I want to get a couple of specific questions about the game. Of course, we all saw what Sam Howell did. Statistics aside, I think if he had gone out there and he ended up 10 for 25, for example, but he still played exactly the way he did, I think we all would have been happy with it because we saw what we needed to see in terms of all the physical traits and everything and reading defenses, second, third read, moving the pocket, getting out of the pocket, throwing on the run. All those things were extremely exciting. But Trev, you've been a howler all along.
Yes.
What does this particular game, in that he was impressive all the way through, what does it do for you in terms of how you think it's going to carry over to the regular season?
Well, I don't know. He didn't play against the ones. He played against the twos and threes, so it's still a question mark. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah.
I'm hyped. I'm excited. I'm impressed. He was cool, calm, and collected. Even after he took that sack, he came right back and made a play and autocorrected so you make you forget about the sack that even happened.
Yeah.
He looked like he's been here before. He didn't waver under pressure.
Yeah.
He's a 5th-round pick playing against the Baltimore Ravens. I don't care, 2s, 3s, 4s, 5s, 1s, to try to break their preseason streak. So he has something to play for. Not only that, but he just got named QB1 for the regular seasons, week 1. So now we get to see why he was named that. Yeah, he looks good in practice, but you're going against the same people every day in practice. Now, you take what you learn in practice to put it on the field on the Monday night game, the only game on TV, the home game, new owner, like all this stuff on there. And he looked like he's been there for 2 or 3 years already before this game. I'm impressed. I didn't like he took the sack, but hey, he came back and corrected it, so I have no problem with that. He didn't show like he was that sack was not a fallen domino for the rest of the game. That was just one glitch in his play. Another sack, it was another glitch in his play, but I think he did great. When the stats came out that he had the 3 touchdowns and the 122 passer rating, and out of all the quarterbacks in the preseason, like,
hey, it just kind of cemented it for you.
And it lets you know that Eric Bieniemy is doing what he said he was doing. He's going to come in here, work with Sam Howell, get the playbook that's dedicated towards his skill set, and it's showing.
I think one of the most impressive things, and Beard, you might not know this, but I was not a howler. I was completely against
Still not. Don't let him
for a lot of reasons, and we don't need to go over all those particular reasons, but I was not. But over the course of this off season, last week I had turned the corner about 90 degrees. I hadn't done a full 180 on Sam Howell. I've done a full 180 now on Sam Howell. I am officially a howler. I am a howler now, and it's crazy. But the one thing that stands out the most to me about this is a new offense.
Mm-hmm.
We all know this is a new offense. We don't take that into consideration. As good as you wanted to say he looked against Dallas, or as good as you say, as good as he looked in the preseason last year, he had to start from scratch. Mm-hmm. This is a whole new offense, a whole new verbiage that he had to learn, and route patterns and the whole thing. And he looks like, as Trev said, he looks like a seasoned veteran out there. So, Beard, I want you to tell me first if you were a howler from the beginning and where you stand on him now.
So I always use this as an example to let people know my beliefs in players, is because I deal in sports cards as part of my job, and I invested in Sam Howell rookie cards because I thought I watch a lot of college football. Okay, Sam Howell's a guy in college, and when his drop-off season in college, he lost Javonte Williams, he lost Michael Carter, he lost Diami Brown. I mean, that's just a few of like the big names, right? He adapted his style of play. It wasn't necessarily the same sort of, numbers that made him jump on the scene as a potential number 1 pick. But for me, that showed me more as a player than the actual statistical numbers that made him, a potential first-round draft pick, because it showed me that he's willing to do whatever he has to do to win the game. Okay. To me, if you're going to play quarterback in the National Football League, You could look as good as you want to look, a la Zach Wilson in the combine, right? But I need to see you in that game mode, the mental aspect of the game mode, which is, I also really like Desmond Ridder. I watched Desmond Ridder go into Notre Dame on the road during that season at Cincinnati, and he looked like a gamer. So for me, like Sam Howell, I've always thought it was a steal because, you know, you got him in the 5th round. You kind of like got him stashed away. You know, like I wasn't one of those guys who was like clamoring for him to play last year because I didn't like the situation for him. I thought the Scott Turner offense was horrible. I wanted to see Wentz work. Heineke was winning us games. Like the recipe wasn't there for him, and I think that this is a perfect situation for him. So that's where I'm at with Sam Howell. I still think Sam Howell is the 4th best quarterback in the division right now because he's only played 1 game in the NFL, you know, in the regular season. So for me, like, I'm not going to anoint him, but that doesn't mean that I don't see the potential in him. I see the potential. I see what he can do. It was interesting. I was listening on the radio today, and they were talking about his floor and his ceiling. And I was really trying to figure out, like, what kind of quarterback do I think is his floor and his ceiling? And it might sound crazy, right? But
is this a hot take alert?
I think his floor is Baker Mayfield at his best. Okay?
That was pretty good.
His ceiling can be Aaron Rodgers.
Oh, that is a hot take alert. That is a hot take alert.
That's where I think his like, if I'm looking at comparable play, I'm looking at, you know, that's where I am. I think Sam Howell can make all the throws. I think he's mobile enough where people don't give Aaron Rodgers throughout his career enough credit for what he can do mobility wise.
Oh yeah, he's very mobile.
He can make plays out of the pocket and stuff like that. But that's where I see Sam Howell falling somewhere in between those sort of 2 guys. And one of the big things that I liked about him most from last preseason game to this preseason game was, you know, and I talked about Baker Mayfield. If you notice, one of the things Baker Mayfield would do when he would get in trouble and not necessarily at his best, he would always roll out that spin move to roll out outside the tackle when he was under pressure. And Sam was doing that a lot in that first preseason game. In this preseason game, outside the 1 sack where he should have got rid of the ball, you didn't see him do that spin move outside to the tackle. You saw a lot more stepping up in the pocket and stuff like that. So for me, I always look at players like this. You know, what did they do wrong in the game before, or, you know, and how did they address it? You know, I'm sure they took him down and said, I like that too. Russell Wilson is definitely another one too. I think Russell Wilson could be the ceiling also. I just, you know, like that's a really good one. I might have to revisit
rethink.
That, you know? But yeah. I think that sort of type of quarterback, a guy that can make the throws but is mobile enough to do things. You know, so that's where I'm at with Sam Howell right now.
I did not have Sam Howell being compared to Aaron Rodgers on my bingo card for tonight, but I'm going to put that in the bonus section in the center. I'm going to do one more question about the game before we kind of get into the whole roster stuff, prove it time coming up in the Ravens game. And Trev, let me ask you, we all saw when Terry went out, we were all, I mean, that's just the worst guy to go out, not named Sam Howell, for injury. But he was mad, right? You could see he was angry. And I got to thinking about it, and I haven't really talked to anybody about this now. So I want to throw it to you guys here, Trev, first. Was he mad because he was still out there late in the second quarter? Was he mad because he got hurt? Or was he mad because they made him leave the field because he was hurt? Why do you think he was mad of those 3 choices? You don't get any others. Those are the only 3.
I think he was mad because he got injured. I don't see him being the kind of guy who complains for being out there on the playing field too long, because the kid loves to play. He's going to do whatever it takes to help his team reach whatever goal they have set. The third one was he was mad because they took him out and he wanted to keep playing.
Yeah, that he wanted to keep going.
Yeah, I think it's just the second one. He's just mad he got injured, and I think he's just mad that the type of injury it is too, because he knows how valuable toes are when it comes to route running and wide receivers. So I think that's what he's most mad about, is the type of injury and, of course, being injured.
Okay. Beard, what did you think of those three choices?
So it's crazy because when stuff like that happens when you're at the game, it's so much more different.
Right,
when
because
you're
you
at
don't get
home
like all the
watching TV.
updates or
So
anything. Right?
we were sitting in the right by the tunnel. So we were in 105, I believe,
Okay.
where we were.
Sure.
So we literally saw. We didn't see the injury, anything. We saw him walking by us, like literally walking by us with 30 seconds left in the second quarter.
Sure.
And I look at Authentic. I'm like, Terry's going to the locker room. He's like, yeah.
Why?
And then I'm like, maybe he's just getting a head start, because sometimes when you get like a little bump before the half, you'll see some of these guys kind of go to the locker room like with that sort of time frame left. So I didn't realize it until I looked at my phone, and my phone's going crazy. Terry McLaurin's out with a toe injury, and but I think it's the question is fantastic because it's really like those are the three that it would be, and I think I totally gonna agree 1,000% with Trev on this one because I don't see Terry McLaurin ever being mad. He probably if I had to rank the three, I'll go with the injury being mad that he got hurt at 1, mad that he couldn't continue playing at 2, and then mad that he was out there at 3 because I think he wants to play. So I think that was an interesting one. I do want to say I see a lot of really good floor ceilings here. Drew Brees, that's a good one too.
Drew, I mean, he's about the same size as Drew Brees, but he's got a little bit more escapability, I think, than Drew Brees does. But yeah, that's definitely a good one. All right, well, so let's wrap up. All right, the Ravens game, that's behind us now. We got a lot of roster stuff to talk about here coming up because what is it? It's Monday is cut down day from 90 to 50-3. I think it's Tuesday. Tuesday at 4 o'clock.
90? How is there so many 90? Like, I didn't see 90 people out there when I was at training camp.
Yeah, there's definitely 90 dudes out there. So we're gonna talk all about the roster. We're gonna talk about the injuries and all of that. So we're gonna do that here in the game. We're gonna talk. It's called Prove It Time, and stay with us. We will be right back.
The game is brought to you by Pacers Running Stores. Pacers has 5 stores in Northern Virginia and DC. For the best running footwear, apparel, and gear, just stop by or schedule a virtual fitting with the best running experts in the business. Pacers Running exists to help as many people as possible through running. For every run, it's Pacers Running.
We love our guys at Pacers Running. Chris Farley, love them. They have, like I said in the spot there, they have 5 stores all over Northern Virginia. If you can't make it out to their stores, they have virtual fittings online. They've been very good to this show from the very beginning, so we appreciate Pacers Running tremendously. If you haven't hit that like button, please do so at this time. We really appreciate that part. We got so many more people who have jumped in here, like Justin's in here. We didn't talk about Gus being here, Metaphor, Big E, Rogers in here. We got all kinds. Michael, Johnny Boy. We appreciate everybody who is in the chat. Keep that chat coming, and we will keep commenting on that. First, let's talk about the injuries. We already know about Terry going out. He's had an X-ray, negative. He had an MRI, negative. He is going to rest up for a couple of days, and then they will reevaluate probably at some point early next week. But there are certain guys like Logan Thomas, who is progressing. He was out on the field today. Chase was out there today. He was out there for 11 on 11s. Now, they didn't have pads today, but he was out there. Danny Johnson was back out there after the body slam from Mark Andrews in the joint practices. Kendall Fuller was not. I'm trying to think of the others. Fedarian Mathis was not out there. Cosme did not participate today. I wouldn't be too concerned about Cosme not being out there as well. But those are some of the injuries. And, of course, the big one is Terry McLaurin. Trev, are you concerned about Terry McLaurin? His injury?
A tiny bit because we don't know what toe it is. And toe is a very finicky injury, especially to wide receivers. I mean, most of their game is route running and breaking off the line and jabbing here and cutting here. And, I mean, he looked like the way he reacted, he looked like it was something to be a little concerned about. But
yeah,
MRI came back negative, X-ray negative. rest up a couple days. He's a strong kid, but tiny concern because it's a toe injury and it could be finicky. We don't know how long it's going to take for him to rehab from that. So just a little concern.
Beard, are you concerned about the injury?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Obviously it's, I think Trev touched on it about when we were talking about how he's upset because that toe, when it comes to running routes, it can be so, critical. But I think in years past, I probably would have been like, season's over sort of situation.
Yeah.
But I think with the emergence of Dotson, I think kind of gives you like, if he does have to miss a week, right? I think you can put Dotson, Brown, and Samuel all on the field, and I think it'll be good enough to win a football game. I'm not saying it'll be the same with Terry out there, but I think Dotson has proven that he has, made these steps as far as a playmaker when he's healthy, that he can do so much out there. And I think his route running is very underrated amongst, his class of wide receivers. He's not like somebody that a lot of people talk about in an upper echelon of these young wide receivers. And I think De'Ami Brown, when I went to camp, he stood out to me as the most impressive player on the field.
Yeah,
his ability to he's so much. I think people were like, "Oh my God, he's a downfield threat." I don't know. His hands have gotten better, and at the game, he made a couple of good catches. There was one where he almost made that one in the back of the end zone that got tipped, got knocked out, and stuff like that.
Still
but
fought for
it. His hands have looked like they've gotten stronger to me. Like he's fighting more for balls. And it was interesting because Authentic brought up the point of Josh Doxson, whatever.
Sure.
How he could never win the one-on-ones, and that was what kind of was his downfall. And I feel like De'Ami Brown has improved on that, and he's ready to take that next step. But so I don't think, we'll have to wait and see, obviously. But I think the timing of the injury between now and the first game obviously is beneficial to us. It's not like it happened in season where like you're like everything's go, go, go. It happens so fast. You barely get 3 days. It feels like sometimes between games. So I think that's going to be beneficial to us as well moving forward when it comes to this injury.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think the point is, Dotson, okay, we know as Washington fans, we know what Dotson is. We have a lot of confidence in Dotson. I think the more important role is the De'Ami role if Terry has to miss some time, because Dotson's going to get his. I'm not concerned about that. But then who's going to take that number 3 spot with Curtis Samuel being the number 2 guy then? And then De'Ami Brown has to step up and play a whole lot more than he's expected to. So De'Ami having a good camp, De'Ami having that what do you call it? That chemistry with Sam Howell, that's going to certainly help.
I was going to,
that helps, right, Trev?
Yeah, it just looks like he's more comfortable in the offense and playing than he did since he's been here, because he knows who his guy is throwing the ball. So he had that chemistry. Didn't just start this year; started back in Carolina, but you can tell a difference that he's like. He trained. He posted a lot of videos. He trained this summer off season with Sam Howell. So I feel like his attitude about being on this team is contributing with his better play because he knows his guy is back there throwing the ball.
And that touchdown pass, he fought. That was kind of what you were saying, Beard. He fought for that pass. He was not open when Howell threw that, and he fought to get in a position to make that catch. And that's what you want from a guy like that. So that's a big one, of course. Now there's a couple other things that's going on at camp, and I think Ron talked about this today in his press conference, the left guard situation. We're all kind of hoping that this left guard situation would have resolved itself by now, but it hasn't. Sadiq Charles seems to be the number 1 guy now, but Ron said, yeah, he's kind of the number 1 guy, but Chris Paul's had a good camp. They might rotate, kind of like what Cosme and Lucas last year did at right tackle. Are you in favor of that, Trev? Are you in favor of a rotational left guard, Charles/Paul?
Yeah, bro, depth. We need it. If they're both having a good camp, keep them both.
Keep them both out there.
I mean, I'm not, putting that jinx or whatever, but you know how it goes. So yeah, if they're both having great camps, I don't care who's won as long as they're both here. Since they're both having great camps, that's all that matters to me. So
Beard, does that not say that, does that not prove that there's no number one guy? If you have two guys, it goes with any position, especially when you talk about quarterbacks. If you got two, then you don't have one.
Yeah, I mean, this isn't 1990s college football,
Yeah.
like with the quarterbacks for
Yeah,
the
right.
situation. But I think that for me, people you have to remember, they know so much more what's going on than we do.
Sure.
Okay. So they're just going to tell us a whole bunch of things. Obviously, if Ron says too much, everybody goes crazy. If Ron doesn't say enough, everybody goes crazy, so it's like, but I'm on record of being extremely high on Sadiq Charles coming out of LSU. So I thought that originally he was being, drafted as the replacement for Trent Williams. I thought that was the plan all along, and he's been injured literally since he got drafted. So I think that he's kind of been this sort of afterthought for a lot of people. I think that he has potential to be a solid starting NFL lineman, and I think that it's showing his versatility now that he's obviously been playing more of the guard role here on this team. So I think that for me, I would like to see Sadiq Charles, just because I think the potential is there. But to have that depth is super important. Now, as far as rotating goes, I think at any position on the football field, I'm a guy that's like played a hot hand. If a guy's playing well and he's making all the blocks, leave him in.
keep him in. Yep.
And if he's not, then you move on to the next guy, and if he gets it done, then he stays in the game. So for me, I mean, the whole offensive line, there's a lot of Lucas looked really good, and I'm a big fan of Nick Gates. Obviously, I've had a lot of Nick Gates in my ear thanks to my co-host Authentic. It was awesome. Him and Authentic had a nice exchange when we were at training camp. So. But and then you saw obviously, the play in the end zone with Cosme dancing and Nick Gates coming in like a madman. So I think that this offensive lineman, I think this line in general is interesting. I think this is a good problem to have considering how bad our offensive line has been and how bad our offensive line could potentially be this season. Because let's be honest, it's all very one big giant question mark. Between the offensive line and the linebacking situation. So I think it'll be interesting to see who plays where in the Bengals game, and I'm sure we're going to talk about that in the Bengals preview. But I think this is a good problem to have. Okay, it's a good problem to have with this. I think we have some potential and some young guys here, and it's always good to have depth on the offensive line. We know how that goes.
Yeah, and I think something that kind of stood out to me when I went to training camp the one time is when they were running the number 3 offense when Jake Fromm was out there. And Ricky Stromberg was not even out there during that time. However, since that time, he's gotten a lot of run at guard, at right guard specifically. And I don't know that he's played left guard in camp or in the preseason at all. Trev, are you liking what you're hearing about Stromberg playing a whole lot more, being like the backup guard instead of saving him kind of as the third team center?
I do like that. Just because he was drafted to us as a center, but we already have a center. We have Tyler Larson backing up Nick Gates, who's been our starting center before. So why not use him somewhere else instead of just leaving him on the bench waiting for his opportunity after 2 guys in front of him? I like it. It just goes back to the depth and versatility. There's nothing wrong with having too many versatile players on offensive line. Defensive line rotates and shuffles all the time, so maybe he can go better against the second rotation guy or the third rotation guy. It's just a great problem to have, like Beard was saying. So I'm cool with him position flexing, center, guard, tackle, whatever, as long as he's contributing without hurting. So yeah.
Are there any guys, Beard, that you've seen kind of the backups on the line that you've been impressed with?
I mean, I thought Lucas played phenomenal
Yeah.
in that game. Obviously, a lot of people forget tight end because I think they look at tight end as a skill position in today's league. As a guy who played tight end back in my playing days.
Yeah. How long ago was that? It was a while ago. Did they still have leather helmets back then?
But I think that it's important to kind of look at that aspect of the line as well. Because that position is still kind of unknown. I think, obviously, I'm not a big Bates guy as far as coming out and catching passes, but he's a good blocker.
Yeah.
And I think that's gonna be. He can run routes and he can catch balls. We know that, but I think they're gonna try and use him a little bit more in the run game as far as blocking goes. But for me, I've been so focused on Sadiq Charles's progression, because I've been invested in him. I watched him play in, when these linemen come out the SEC, it's a different beast.
Sure.
Like you're going against you're
going against pros.
Yeah. Exactly. And so for
Every
me,
week, yeah.
For me, I think to have him healthy is so important, and I just think that's going to be an interesting aspect to watch, to see what they do. And I think Wiley is a wild card. He's a wily card, right now. Obviously, he comes from Kansas City, so he's a little bit familiar with that offense. I think that, but if you look at him statistically, he gave up, I want to say it's the most sacks for anybody at that position last season.
That's right.
So that
in the regular season.
Yeah, regular season. So that's something, that concerns you. So I think you're going to see remember last year it was like we had a different starting offensive line, I think, for 75% of the season. Something along those lines.
Yeah.
Now, we did that in a really not a good way. You know what I'm saying? So
that's right.
I think now it'll be interesting to see how that works, moving into the regular season. They're obviously going to want to have some stability because, the offensive line is so much about chemistry, and a lot of people don't realize that. They're always focused on the individuals when it comes to an offensive line. But offensive line has to be – there has to be that, that unison to a certain extent, because you need everybody to know what's happening. So when a defense starts moving around, you have to know where you're blocking and which, because if you're playing left guard on one play and then right tackle on the next play, you're like, oh snap, I was supposed to be picking up the action in this hole, but I went this way, so you have to have smart guys. If you're going to be moving these guys around a lot on the offensive line, you're going to want to have a lot of brains out there. Who's going to be running the operation as far as that goes is going to be what's most important. So as long as everybody's on the same page, I think we'll be okay. But eventually you want to have some solidification as far as what your starting offensive line is going to be.
Yeah, for sure. And there's another guy who has really impressed, who I'll be totally honest, I didn't really know a whole lot about until fairly recently. And he's been mentioned here in the chat a couple of times, is Trent Scott. Trent Scott played really well at right tackle after Wiley played the one series. And then Trent Scott was the guy who came in at right tackle the rest of the first half. And then I think in the second half, he played left tackle. And so here's a guy that we don't know a whole lot about, but looks like he's probably earning himself a spot on the team, with Cornelius Lucas being a swing tackle and also this guy Trent Scott being a swing tackle. Now, one of the other positions, you talked a little bit about the tight end position, Beard, but one of the other positions is the tight end with Cole Turner. And Cole Turner has impressed quite a bit. He impressed a lot last year, but in training camp, and then got hurt and did not have a good regular season. Logan Thomas is working his way back from injury. Did Cole Turner do enough, Trev, that makes you say, I don't really care when Logan comes back?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, he's always got
I saw
one.
that earlier in the show. As soon as you mentioned Logan Thomas.
Yeah, he was like,
bro,
I hate Logan.
Let's be real.
Yeah.
Hodges is not the answer. John Bates is a blocking tight end. Stoner said he's a glorified offensive tackle.
Yeah, we just need to change his number from 87 to 67 and stick him out there at right tackle, and we'll be fine.
Logan Thomas can't finish a season.
Yeah.
Can't stay healthy to start a season. Can't finish a season.
Well, to be technical, neither can Cole Turner.
Yeah,
so
true.
far. It's only been 1 year, but so far.
But he's doing more than what Logan's doing this year already, and that's actually which is staying healthy. So I'm high on Cole Turner a little bit. I like his vertical game. I like his size. I saw a couple of times in camp where he dropped a couple passes. I think he just had a bad day, but for the most part, he has great hands. You saw what he did in Nevada. That's why we got him here. So, yeah, I'm high on Cole Turner. I'm over Logan Thomas. I'm just over our tight end room. I mean, we've got Alex Armah, who's a fullback, who's a potential tight end as well, but he's a short, stocky guy. So, like, how's he really going to help outside of the blocking game as a tight end? So, like, I'm going to Cole Turner because our tight end room, I think, in my opinion, is one of the weakest rooms we have right now in the offense. So,
you agree with that, Beard? That's one of the weakest rooms?
1,000%.
Really?
Now that's not that is not necessarily saying it in a bad way, but I mean, if you look at running back, which I want to talk a little bit about, but if you look at defensive line, wide receiver, secondary. I mean, all of those things you can look at it. There's some potential there. Linebacker and tight end, I think are least especially at the depth of the position is really the fall off is drastic. So that's why I would put that. And I think Gus Bus said Amani Rogers was a big loss. Absolutely, 1,000%. Love that guy. Now, I was a guy who, obviously, I'm a Notre Dame fan, but I was a guy who thought, Michael Mayer was on the board for the Washington Commanders.
I won that too.
I was preaching because I'm telling you right now, the Raiders got an app. Why do you think the Raiders were like, okay, we can let Darren Waller go, who's a top 5 tight end, top 3 tight end when healthy in the National Football League. They're going to let him go. I mean, that tells me that they got a lot of faith in Michael Mayer. So obviously, like that just goes to show you where my head was at with our tight end room. I love Logan Thomas. I think Logan Thomas is a good ball player, but he's got to stay healthy. And unfortunately, it's as cliche as it is. The best ability is availability, And but to me, Cole Turner shows the most potential, and we have to remember, obviously, the tight end position in Kansas City was huge, and I like to take these parallels. I'm not saying that it's going to be Kansas City, right? But I think that it's easy to look at Kansas City and be like, they had Travis Kelce, so yeah, we're going to run a lot of tight end stuff when you have the best tight end in the league, But I think that a lot of people forget about all the other players that they've thrown into that tight end position during a game, during a season, that have made these big plays. And you're like, who the heck is that guy? That's not Travis Kelce. But they know how to utilize the strengths of that position in Kansas City. And I think that Bieniemy is going to try and do that here because Cole Turner, it provides a target. Man, that guy is big. He's big. There was a play in the Baltimore Ravens game where the Ravens scored a touchdown, and I forget if it was the fullback or one of their tight ends. But, the guy, the quarterback, I want to say it was Brown, he put it over 3 defenders in the middle of the end zone to that tight end target. And I think that you need something like that, especially for a team like the Commanders who have struggled, albeit in the Scott Turner offense, but have struggled in red zone offense, And I think that a lot of that has to do with the not having that tight end target. So I love to see Cole Turner get some more action, specifically in the red zone. So if you have a healthy Logan Thomas and a Cole Turner and a John Bates, and they know their roles and we're utilizing them properly, it can be a good room. But there's a whole lot of ifs, woulda, shoulda, coulda sort of situation in that recipe. So I think the potential is there. It's just a matter of who can stay healthy, who can capitalize off of the opportunities in this offense.
And Ron said it quite a bit during training camp and before training camp. He said, we like our tight ends. And, people asking if they're going to draft a tight end, if they're going to go get a tight end in free agency or whatever. And he just keeps stressing, we like our tight ends. So he's seeing something probably that we're not seeing. Although I will say that Curtis Hodges didn't do himself any favors in the second half of that game by not fighting for a couple of balls, dropping some balls or whatever. He did not help himself at all. All right, so let's move over to the running backs then. And this team has, I think, a pretty deep room, but they're only going to keep 3, maybe 4, is my opinion. Or they could keep more, who knows? And we already know who B-Rob and Antonio Gibson are the first 2. Is it going to be Chris Rodriguez Jr.? Is it going to be Jonathan Williams? Is it going to be Derek Gore? Is it going to be Jared freaking Patterson? It's really a tough room to get past because you have 2 guys who are dependable in the first 2, who are talented, and it almost to me doesn't matter who the third guy is because they're not going to play. This is not an offense that has 2 guys for first and second down and then has a J.D. McKissick who's a third down back. They don't have that necessarily. They've got 2 guys who can play all 3 downs every drive, or this drive is Robinson, next drive is Gibson, next drive is Robinson, or whatever, who can play all 3 downs. So where are they going to go with this room, Beard? Where are they going to go with the running back room?
This is to me this is the toughest.
And I didn't even mention Armah, who could be considered a running back.
You don't have to mention him.
Yeah.
So it's very, very tough. First of all, for those of you that don't know, I am like one of the biggest Antonio Gibson believers and supporters in the world. So I love me some Antonio Gibson, and I pray that we get to see Antonio Gibson do his thing in this offense. I think he is the perfect running back for this offense.
Trev's he's gonna fight you on that.
Now,
but go ahead.
If you look at it so far, Antonio Gibson has had more rushing attempts and ran more passing routes than Brian Robinson has with Sam Howell on the field this preseason. Not by a drastic amount. I think he has 3 or 4 more rush attempts with Sam Howell on the field in the preseason than Robinson, and I think he has like 6 or 7 more pass routes ran on the field with Sam Howell this preseason. So I think once again, this could be a hot hand situation. I saw Antonio Gibson, out wide on a couple of plays in the Ravens game, which I love. I think they're gonna utilize the 2 guys. I have no worries about how they utilize those 2 guys. This is not Scott Turner. I'm gonna be beating this drum for a long time. So I have complete faith in Bieniemy using that. Now, as far as the other guy, it's so tough. I wish they could keep 4. I wish they could keep 4.
So you don't think they're keeping 4?
I don't think they will. I think you're gonna
either,
see. You're gonna see something funky with the linebackers that they keep. I think you have to keep that in mind with the Jamin Davis situation. I think you have to think about the versatility of the offensive line. I think they just do not know where they're gonna go with that yet. So I think you're gonna get some of these weird guys that they keep extra that might affect the running back room. This obviously Rodriguez didn't help himself in this game.
No. Man.
But I love him. I love his versatility. Yeah. I think that's the big thing here. It's tough because Patterson. I mean, you saw he's always gonna be on the edge, like the guy. Like you love to see him play because he's a player. Yeah. You saw that touchdown play. That was right in front of my face. I mean, he was like there was no giving up in that guy. I love it, but. Is it something that can be useful in the long run of a season in the game? Exactly. So, and Williams, what does he do? All he does is impress you when he gets opportunity.
Does is impress.
He's a guy that if you look up, I want to say he's probably averaging 6 yards a touch. When he gets the ball since he's been with the Commanders. So, it's going to be tough. I think. It's going to be one of those situations where it's once again something that we don't necessarily see. It's what Bieniemy feels is going to be able to give them the most versatility in this offense. Who catches the ball the best out of the backfield is so important in this offense. So it's going to be tough. I think it's going to be a coin. Like if they keep 4, it'll probably be Rodriguez and Williams. I think.
Sure, I agree.
But I can see a scenario where they keep 3, and I think you keep Rodriguez in that situation, and you put Williams on the practice squad. I think that would be the smart move, future wise, franchise wise, business side wise.
Yeah.
That's kind of how I look at that situation.
Yeah, I think what maybe the smart thing is to do is to keep Rodriguez if you're going 3, and to cut Jonathan Williams, because Jonathan Williams is not one of those guys that teams are going to be looking at and saying we need this guy on our roster. Now, Chris Rodriguez might do that just because he's a young guy, a draft pick. He has impressed. So then you do that, and then once the season gets a little bit closer and everyone's kind of settled on the roster, then you flip-flop them. Then you bring Williams up and let Rodriguez go to the practice squad. Maybe you can sneak him by that way. I don't know. But Trev, first of all, why are you so anti Antonio Gibson? And then just overall, what do you think of the running back room?
I've been saying this ever since Bieniemy came here. He's been going further and further down the need/use list. Now he's a third down back. He came here. He was the leading rusher. Lost his job to somebody, got shot in the leg twice, and then came back and took his job. And then now he's a third down back in the new offense with Eric Bieniemy. I mean, he's good. I just think his time in Washington is coming slowly to an end just by his diminishing role for this offense.
Yeah.
Now, granted, maybe he fits this offense better as a third down back, but if you go off of what he's done for us as a leading rusher and as a weapon, maybe he's not really just ready to be constricted to third down.
I'll give you a hot take.
Okay.
Gibson has more total yards of offense this season than Brian Robinson.
I like that. Alert. I like that. I mean, it could very well happen for sure. Yeah. As far as keeping the running backs, man, I like Chris Rodriguez, but that fumble really did hurt. And you know how Ron Rivera feels about fumbles. A la Antonio Gibson.
They'll put him right on the sideline. Yeah, you don't care.
I don't know why, but I like Derek Gore. Not only because he's Frank Gore's offspring, but it's because he came from Bieniemy's system in Kansas City. Didn't get too much playing time, but when he did, he kind of contributed when he got the opportunity. He's running really hard for us in these past couple of preseason games and in camp. He's had a really good camp. Jonathan Williams, I love that guy. Follows me on Twitter. He's a good hard-nosed runner too, but I think he'll be okay if we let him go. Thanks for your time here, but he could probably get what he's looking for somewhere else as maybe a number 2 or 3 guy on their running back depth chart. So if they keep 4, you got to keep Chris Rodriguez because that fumble is one thing, but his potential, what he's shown in camp in the preseason games, the way he cuts inside and runs out, runs in, what he did in Kentucky, I like him. And then if you're going to keep 4, Derek Gore.
Come on, over Jonathan Williams. I love Jonathan Williams.
I mean, I do too, but I like Derek Gore. He's EB friendly. He's familiar with the offense.
Sure.
He's fast. He's Frank Gore's offspring, so that's cool. But Jarrett freaking Patterson, love you. I know you're a hometown kid. You're Chase Young's boy. But if all we're going to talk about you is in preseason, then we can afford to let you go because we don't talk about him in any other time. Not in OTAs, not in camp. Only in a preseason game in the fourth quarter. So,
yeah. All right, I got two more kind of topics here before we move on to the Bengals preview. And that is the first one I want to talk about is defensive line. Defensive ends, not defensive line. Defensive ends, specifically edge guys.
Okay.
I'm going to give you a list of all the defensive ends who are signed for next year. Okay, you ready? That's the list. Okay, so we all know this. This has been going on for a while. We've been talking about it since the off season, but we have this whole deal with the Chase and the Montez, and are you going to sign them to long-term deals? Are you going to let them go? But even the backups, the Jonathan Smith Williams and Tuhill and William Bradley King and
a lot of law firms.
Yes, it does.
Yeah. And then you got the 2 draft picks. You got KJ Henry and Andre Jones. But Trev, what do you make of the defense? Not the tackles. We already know about the tackles. But what do you make of this edge room and what it's going to look like for this year?
outside of Chase and Montez, it's going to look ho-hum. Last year, James Smith-Williams had an okay year. Toohill had an okay year, but we weren't really playing for anything towards the end of the season. Well, we kind of were, but kind of not at the same time. So, and Chase was hurt, so we didn't have any other choice. Andre Jones, I like him. I like KJ Henry, but they don't make defenses like, oh, KJ Henry's this week, we got a game plan for him. Andre Jones this week, a game plan for him.
Yeah.
It's very bleak. Our outside of the two superstars, we just have Jags, if you want to be honest.
Yeah, sure.
So,
I mean, Smith Williams, he's a 7th rounder or 6th rounder. I can't remember.
Bradley King hasn't really done.
He was a 6th or 7th rounder.
Squad in preseason. I forgot he was on the squad like you guys did last week. So like I don't.
Yeah.
It's very bleak. It's a position that we should definitely look at, and during these cuts going down to 53. I thought it was a position we should look at as a cheap vet minimum deal for some of these guys that were out there. Clowney, yeah. I mean, I know he's had a bad rep everywhere else, but it depends on the system and where he plays. He could do something better than Casey Toohill, you know what I mean? And other than Bradley King. So yeah, outside of the two superstars, it's very bleak and it's kind of concerning.
Beard, are you a Chase or a Montez guy if you only can choose one?
I wanna put this out here first and foremost.
Should I get the alarm ready?
I don't want to hear any more Chase Young is a bust talk.
Thank you.
I don't want to hear any more trade Chase Young.
I might fight you on this.
Anymore. We should have drafted Justin Herbert. Okay, I'm tired of it. Okay, first of all, nobody was talking about Justin Herbert when the draft was happening, so I don't want to hear that anymore.
Wait. Okay, hold on. Let me push back a little bit.
Okay,
he went 7th or 6th, even whatever it was. Yeah. Maybe nobody was talking about him, but front office guys were talking about him because they drafted him.
But I mean, like 10. Everybody, that was the class. You know what I'm saying? But like, as far as being a potential number 2 pick, nobody was talking about Justin Herbert in the number 2 slot. You know what I'm saying? So it's just for me, when I don't like to call people busts. That's not. I don't call people busts. I don't call people trash.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? Like that's not my style. Okay.
Yep.
Is there bust in sports? Absolutely. Anthony Bennett was a bust. Okay.
That was a bad one.
Jamarcus Russell was a bust.
Ryan
okay.
Lee.
Now those guys played and they played poorly from day one, and there was anything there. Right. I will never call a guy like Greg Oden a bust. Okay. I won't call, because when injuries get involved, you can't use that as a bust. Okay,
thank you.
That's not a bust. That's unfortunate. That's bad luck. It's not a bust.
Thank you.
Like Chase Young came out and he was drafted number 2, right?
Yep.
And what did he do? He won Defensive Rookie of the Year.
Exactly.
Okay, so you can't call somebody a bust for getting drafted, winning Defensive Rookie of the Year. Now, the next season, the defense as a whole was a complete and utter disaster.
Yeah, it was.
Jack Del Rio did not know what he wanted to do. He had people in wrong positions. He wasn't utilizing these defensive players in the way that they should have been utilized. So for me, and then he got hurt. Right, but before he got hurt, you have to remember. I'm a big Montez guy. I think Montez Sweat is one of the most underrated defensive players in the entire NFL.
Okay.
If you look at what he has done statistically since being in the league, it's absolutely amazing what he has done. Right now, what do you think? Look at Montez Sweat's numbers since Chase Young has come into the league. Look at Montez Sweat's numbers when him and Chase Young are on the field together. It's a product of having Chase Young on the field. Obviously, Sweat and Allen helped that also, but Sweat and Allen were with Montez Sweat before Chase Young got there. So it's just there's certain things that people don't understand when it comes to football. It's not always going to be the quarterback sack. Okay, there's so much that goes into affecting a play before the sack. Okay, the pressure. If you have Chase Young coming off the edge and you're pushing that quarterback up in the middle, who's getting the sack? Who's making the play? Allen
Yeah.
and Payne, right? So
Yeah.
you have to understand that like, those sort of things come into play. And then so for me, that he was hurt, that injury was significant. So now this is a make or break year for him. I have absolutely no problem with them not picking up his option. Now, do I think that they didn't pick up his option because they think that he's a bust? Absolutely not. They didn't pick up his option because it was a smart business decision. You know, and we've seen so far with this front office. Obviously, there's a little bit of a change here now with the new ownership. But if Chase Young comes out here and proves himself, and Montez Sweat come out here and proves himself, there's a possibility they sign both of these guys next year. I would think that would be ideal for the organization, especially if you have a quarterback on a rookie deal who's performing. That allows you the opportunity to sign two marquee defensive players, a la Montez Sweat and Chase Young. Now, what do we think? What do we think that is a bust season for Chase Young? And I'll tell you what, I seen Chase Young out there on the field at camp. He looks absolutely disastrously bigger than everybody else on that field. He is a absolute machine, a specimen of a human being, and his first step looks so much better. I saw him utilizing his hands a lot more technique. You know, does he have more to learn? Yes. I've seen him working after practice. I've seen him in there early before practice. And people, they let the media get inside their head. Oh, he's worried about the commercials and all this hoopla. Don't listen to none of that. Don't listen to none of that. I'm here for the football. That's what I'm here for. I don't care what he does outside of football because he shows up and he's a great teammate. You never heard anybody on that team ever say anything negative about Chase Young. I agree with that. You know what I'm saying? So for me, I think this is going to be a make or break year for Chase Young. I expect him to come out the gate and play like it's a make or break year. And, you know, it'll be something it's unfortunate, but he's going to be under a microscope. He's going to be under a microscope. But there's no way that you can tell me that Chase Young is a bust. There's no proof in the pudding.
Okay, well, let me ask you this, Beard. This is a make or break year. What if he breaks? What if he does not have a good year?
What do we? That's the question though. What is not a
what
good
if he
year?
had the same type of year that he had in year 2?
But how many? So not playing the whole season?
Well, no. In year 2, he played 10 games and got hurt in game 10 or whatever it was, game 9 or game 10. He had 1.5 sacks.
Yeah,
so I'm qualifying it that way. What if he had that kind of year?
Let's put all the variables out the window as far as, you know, Del Rio's defense that year and everything like that. Let's just say on a pure production standpoint, if he only plays 10 games this year and gets 1.5 sacks, you can't sign him. You can't re-sign him.
Right. So
unless you can get him on a cheap deal.
But is he then a bust? If that happens and they let him go, and he goes on somewhere else and doesn't have this great career. He just, has a career.
Then he's
a bust.
I think you have a reasonable argument to call him a bust, right? But this is the one thing. I think that people forget. They think that every football player is Adrian Peterson, and they're not. Okay? No matter what happens to you, very rarely, injury will cause you to not be the same player. Not necessarily saying that you can't have the same production, but what happens look, I always like to relate it to baseball. You know, the best pitchers in the history of baseball, they pitched for, extensive period of time. You want to know why? Because when they lost the velocity on their fastball, they learned how to use their other pitches. They learned how to locate. They learned how to change speeds. They adapted to the way that their body was physically changing over time. Greg Maddux is a great example of that. Okay, so as a football player, if you're not going to be the same person that you were before the injury, you have to find a way, whether it be technique, stunts, things like that nature, to be able to utilize what you still have to be productive. Now, I think based on what I saw, obviously, in limited, in-person visual evidence, he looks like the step is there. He looks like the power is there. So I'm excited to see what he's going to do for sure.
All right, last question before we move on to the Bengals preview, and this is kind of just something I was thinking about, but Ron gave the game ball to Josh Harris again for 2 straight games. All right. Is this, Trev, is he purposely kind of sucking up to the new owner by saying, hey, I'm going to do everything I can to bring you in and make you a part of this inner circle that is the locker room, which I don't think owners should ever be a part of that inner circle, but he's trying to bring it so he can save his job no matter what. Is this something he's doing on purpose, or does Josh Harris deserve a game ball for 2 straight games? For 2 straight games. I was okay the first game.
Yeah, I don't know
game?
about 2 straight games. Maybe a small part of that is saying, hey, look, bro, I can win games after all. Just stick with me and we can have a winning product on the field. And I think the other part is like, we truly appreciate somebody who appreciates us and all the work that we're putting in for the fans and for ourselves and for the city and the organization. And I think giving him the game ball is showing the appreciation of that like, thank you for taking that leap and spending that $6.05 billion to make us a football organization the right way again. So I think it's a little bit of both, a little bit of sucking up and then a little bit of thanks for, doing this. But 2 in a row is a little excessive. Now, if we win Saturday and he gets to Josh Harris again,
I don't think
that man is trying to save his job.
Right.
Beard,
how do you fire a guy who's given you 2 game balls?
Easily.
How do you fire that guy?
They're preseason.
Yeah.
Listen, I think he gave him the second one because he was there. They were home the first home games for the situation, But there's a plan in place already. I don't. And that's another thing.
A succession plan?
Add this to the list of things I don't want to hear anymore. I don't want to hear any fire Ron Rivera and all this. Listen, Ron Rivera has done an absolutely phenomenal job since being here. Given the situation, what he walked into, what he was asked to do, which was too much to begin with. But let's look at some of the guys that he's gotten. Yeah, there's been some misses for sure. And listen, the Carson Wentz thing, they're throwing Hail Marys, bro. Like, there's, nobody wanted to come here.
Yeah.
What is he supposed to do? You know what I'm saying?
I don't care. Something. You got to do something.
And they did. They tried something. They brought in Carson Wentz. You know what I'm saying? But look, what did they do with the listen, they basically traded Olave for Sam Howell, Brian Robinson, and Dotson. Is that not – that could possibly go down as one of the greatest draft day moves in this organization's history.
Sure.
Okay?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Now, so and you see how the players react to him, right?
Oh, yeah, they love him.
The media and the fan base I have to remind myself that fan is short for fanatic because people are like
crazy.
One thing happens. I saw people already going on Ron Rivera. He iced his own kicker. The dude didn't even call timeout, but y'all just ready to bury the man 6 feet under the ground before you even know what happened. He didn't call timeout. The refs came out and said that they thought he called timeout, but it was a mistake. He didn't call timeout. So I think it was Harbaugh who actually called the timeout, but they said that, ref, wrong sideline, all that, this and that. So anyways, but yeah, I don't want to hear it. There's a plan in place. Eric Bieniemy will be the head coach of the Washington Commanders next year.
Hot take alert.
Ron Rivera knows this. Ron Rivera brought him on board because this is how it's all going to play out. Okay? This is how it's all going to play out. New ownership. Eric Bieniemy finally gets the head coaching job. We bring that culture, winning culture, hard-nosed culture, diversity and going from Ron Rivera to Eric Bieniemy, continuing that line of diversity, which is important, in my opinion, more so here in Washington, D.C. than anywhere else in the National Football League. I think it's important that we go back to our roots of Washington, D.C. And, you know, like, I don't want to hear anything about the old name. It's never coming back. You know, like all that sort of stuff. This is where we're at right now. I think Eric Bieniemy is going to be the head coach of the Washington Commanders next year. I think Ron Rivera knows it. I think ownership knows it. I think Bieniemy knows it. So let's just let them play out. Hopefully we can ride out to the sunset with a Super Bowl. You know, that'd be fantastic. What a way to pass it on to Bieniemy, you know. But if it doesn't work out, Ron Rivera has done what he came here to do. Nobody expected Ron Rivera to come here and win a Super Bowl. If you thought that was going to happen, you were naive. Okay? He came here to change the culture of the organization. He's done everything he possibly can to do it. I mean, nobody has dodged, not necessarily dodged, but nobody has dealt with as much as Ron Rivera has, not even considering the things he's dealt with as personal life, you know, with the loss of the family members, with the cancer, and then dealing with the Dan Snyder situation, Brian Robinson gets shot. I mean, you could go on and on and on and on and on. So that's where I'm at as far as, you know, the game ball going to Josh Harris. I think it's so everybody knows that there's a plan in place already. So let's just let the season go and let's win some football games.
Let it play out. Well done, boys. We got one more segment here. We're going to preview the Bengals game, this hotly contested Saturday night last preseason game of the year here. We're going to do that in the cool down right after this.
The cool down is brought to you by Manscaped. Ever since my Nathan started using their products, I can't cool down. Fellas, trust me. Go to Manscaped right now and get 20% off and free shipping by using the code REF. Your ladies will appreciate you. Now back to Trev, Stoner, and my Manscaped man, Nathan.
No Nathan tonight. Nathan had to take care of some family stuff.
That ad gets me every time.
I know, right?
Every time.
It is quite the wild ad. Yeah, so Nate is Nate. I called him Nate. Nathan. He does not like to be called Nate. I learned that 15 years ago when I first met him. So Nathan is with his son. His son is doing some school stuff, and so he decided that was more important than being on Ref the District, which I'll never understand. But hey, good for him for being a good dad. Whatever. All right. So, all right, let's get to this Bengals preview. We got in the picture there, we've got old Trevor Siemian here, who we're probably going to see a lot of. We're not going to see the Joe Burrows and the Jamar Chases of the world. We're probably not going to, not probably. We're not going to see Sam Howell. We're not going to see probably any starters this game. So, Trev, give me a reason to watch this game.
Depth. You got to see who's going to step up and make that number 2 spot or number 3 spot. It's not going to be exciting to watch. I think this game is more so of technique and like how Beer's been watching Sam Howell, technique, physical traits, third down conversions, third down situations, just special teams, because apparently special teams is very, very important, especially to our squad over here. So, yeah, it's just not going to be exciting. It's not going to be fun to watch. It's just going to be like actual game film and study it. Jacoby Brissett, Jake Fromm. We already know who's number 2, number 3 there, so we don't have to watch that position. But some of these wide receivers that are trying to make it, like the Marcus Kemps, the Brian Pringles, the McGowans, some guys for the cornerbacks, Wild Goose.
Not a Wild Goose guy.
Smith and all, like Terrell Burgess, all these guys that we really don't get to hear about or see much of in camp or with beat reporters reporting. So, like I said, nothing exciting, but this is a depth game to see what you got in case the gritty gets nitty. So,
yeah, Beard, are there any particular guys you're going to be looking for?
Kaz Allen versus Dax Milne.
Woo!
You think that's a roster spot? Last roster spot?
That's
I think that this. I don't know what it is over there, but I mean, everybody seems to love Dax Milne, and I was a Dax Milne guy when he first came out. I thought, hey, this is a little Cole Beasley action going on. This guy could be a little Julian Edelman sort of situation.
Why you keep?
It's not the case.
Why you keep naming just white receivers? Why can't you
that's what they reminded me of. I thought he was going to be that sort of guy, but he hasn't been. So I love Kaz. I think Kaz is I think Kaz should be the guy. I think he proved it more so. I think it's kind of been building up throughout camp and so far. But I think that that final drive, like, listen, I'm looking at the player. I'm looking at what they're doing, how they're doing what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
To me, he proved that he can do more than just be a return guy. I think that he can play on the offensive side of the ball. So I really, really would love to see Kaz Allen. I think he makes the team. I think Dax Milne probably doesn't make the team. It'll be interesting to see. Maybe they keep an extra wide receiver, but I don't think so. So, I mean, like, you got Terry, you got Dotson, you got Samuel, you got Brown, Pringle, and then Kaz Allen.
So 6 and Kaz Allen being the guy who's going to have to play wide receiver if they, run into some injury issues.
Yep. So
he'd be 5 if Terry doesn't play.
Yeah, there'd be, and I think that's why it was so. And people say meaningless. Tell me it was meaningless to see Kaz Allen work in the field on that 2-minute drill at the end of the game. To me that was super important. So that's definitely where I think. And Authentic brings it up. Keep 7 because that's a concern. It's definitely a concern, the depth of that position. So if you keep 7, do you keep Milne and Allen? Or do you go with somebody else in that mix? I don't know. So maybe you keep Milne and Allen, but I think that's the matchup that I have my eye on the most right now as far as roster positions go. I think that's important. And obviously, I think we touched on the running back position. I think that's going to be something that we keep an eye out on. I'd like to see how some of the guys, linebackers, perform as far as, because we're going to need some depth. We still, there's going to be some concern about Jamin Davis at some point during the season, I'd imagine, as far as the legal process goes in the league, maybe stepping in. I'm a Jamin Davis believer. I think that he has the ability, if given the right roaming opportunities as far as the linebacker position goes. But I think that depth of that position is going to be super important. I think it'll be interesting to see how some of these linemen that we talked about earlier in the show, how they perform, how they move around at different positions. I think you're going to see some of those guys play multiple positions throughout this game against the Bengals, which I think will be interesting. So that's where I'm at as far as what I'm keeping my eye on. And obviously, you don't ever want to see anybody get hurt in these games, whether these people are going to make the team or not. They're still out there chasing their dream of being a professional football player, whether it be for the Commanders or the Bengals, or whether they land on another team after roster cuts. So I think that's the most important thing coming out of this game for the state of football is to keep all these guys healthy, but make sure they're playing competitively. I think you want to build off of that spirit and energy that we had in the Ravens game. So I think you play to win the game, no matter who's playing the game themselves.
Trev, what do you think of this statement from Ron Rivera today about Jamin Davis? He said, Jamin is playing fast. He's more confident. I thought with some of the coverage stuff, he really put himself in position. How do you interpret that?
He just had to have something to say about Jamin Davis. Because other than that, you haven't heard anything about Jamin Davis at all, not as much as you did the past couple of years that we've had him. He is still fast. I guess his coverage is better. I think his couple camp notes, he had some nice plays. I think he had an interception in camp recently too, I think. But yeah, it just sounds like someone that he just had to say something nice about and didn't want to go into too much detail. Also because of the legal process, and he was sent home. He was sick today. And so I don't know. It's just a whatever.
Beard, you don't know this, but I am a great decipherer, I think that's the right word, of what people say and what they mean, right? And in this particular case, and we had a Sam
I bet
Howell,
you have a trouble, though, sometimes with the way that I say it.
No, we had a Sam Howell tracker where we kept track of whether he had good days or not good days in practice, simply based on what people were saying. Because you heard it last year when Carson Wentz in practice, they weren't saying that he sucked. They were saying other things, but they were trying to say
politically correct
ways. This, my friend, this is a perfect way of saying that Jamin Davis has not been good. And he's saying, I thought with some of the coverage stuff, he really put himself in position.
Yeah, like that's
such a bland statement. I want to hear things that he talks about other guys when he talks about, for example, Forbes and what he's done, or his main guys, his McLaurins and all that. I want to hear those kinds of things. But he's really just kind of saying he really put himself in position.
Yeah,
that's not good.
Well, listen, this is the thing, though. Like I said earlier, no matter what Ron says, there's not going to be somebody's going to be upset.
Yeah,
you know, he's either talking too much or he's not talking enough. I think Ron Rivera is tougher on Jamin Davis and the linebacker position in general because of where he comes from as a player.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people overlook that. I think that, you know, I feel like it made Jamin Davis a bit better last year.
It seemed to light a fire on him.
You know, and I feel like he's just, and also, you know, you don't want to be too over the top given his situation legally right now too. So it's like you don't want to be like, oh my God, he's everything, right? And then what happens if we lose Jamin Davis for a couple of weeks? Everybody thinks that the sky's falling because, you know, he's been doing so well in the camp, you know. So and you know, maybe it's you caught it Ron at a time where, you know, maybe Jamin, the last play that Jamin had that recently in his mind wasn't the best, you know. There's so many variables that go into it. I try not to read into it too much. What else are we gonna do? You know what I'm saying? Jamin's got to play. He's got to be good. You know? Listen, the linebacker position, I am concerned. You know, and not necessarily as much as it's interesting because we talk about the coverage, right? I'm more concerned about the linebackers in the run stop than anything else. You know, I think that in the past game, I think that your defensive line and your cornerbacks are strong enough to make up for some of the low standard of play, the linebacker position, more so than in the run game. The run game, I feel like the linebacker position will hurt you. The weakness of the linebacker position will hurt you more so than in the pass game because of the strength and versatility of our secondary and our front.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I mean, I get all of that with Jamin, but he definitely has not lived up to what we're hoping to be as a first-round draft pick. But he still has time. This is year 3.
Once again,
what?
Okay. Jamin Davis didn't draft himself at that position, right?
All right.
We drafted him at that position. He only started like 7 games in college. You know, I was having this conversation on Twitter. You know, it reminds me of Trey Lance, right? Like Trey Lance played like 4 games at quarterback in his entire life. It's not his fault San Francisco gave up all those first-round draft picks.
No, it's not his fault.
You know what I'm saying? Like they knew that he was a project. We knew that Jamin Davis was a project going into this. You know, you're drafting, some of these guys get drafted off of pure potential. You know, so like I think that we've seen flashes of Jamin Davis and what he's good at. Now, can we put him in the position to succeed by doing what he's best at doing instead of asking him to do things that he's still learning how to do as a professional, as a linebacker, as a football player, after only starting 7 games in his career before getting to the NFL?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's fair. It's not on Jamin Davis if he doesn't work out. It is on the coaching staff, scouting staff, general manager, all that. But it's still affecting the effectiveness of your football team, and that just, you know, that's what rankles fans. All right, I'm going to put you guys on the spot. I hate to do this for a meaningless preseason game, but Beard, who wins on Saturday night at FedEx 605?
Washington Commanders. 16-13.
Whoa, low-scoring game. All right, Trev?
Yeah, I got Commanders 24-9.
All right.
Cincinnati doesn't score at all.
I mean, all right. I guess we're dominating. I mean, I'm going to take Washington as well.
Trevor Siemian.
Trevor Siemian, that's true.
He played pretty well in some spot relief games over the last couple of years. What was that, Saints?
He's Trevor Siemian.
Yeah, he's Trevor Siemian.
Yeah, he's Trevor Siemian. Yeah. So, yeah, I'll go Commanders. I'll go 37-7. I mean, you know, you'd have no idea who's playing or what. You have no idea what the Bengals' second and third and fourth team guys look like. So
Hey, I do have to give a big shout out to Notre Dame. Notre Dame this Saturday playing against Navy in Ireland. So I'm
absolutely
excited to see my boys get the season started, coming in preseason ranked number 13. Mr. Hartman at quarterback, transferred from Wake Forest.
How do you mute his mic? How do you mute his mic, Trev? I can't figure out how to do that. Notre Dame.
I don't know.
We're Florida guys over here.
Also, I haven't. The documentary came out yesterday. I haven't watched it yet, but I'm excited to watch that. And big shout out to my Baltimore Orioles. World Series on the way.
Jeez, he's just killing you, Stoner, right now.
Oh yeah, that's how you mute it. I figured it out. Good on me to figure that out. No, it's good. It's good that the Orioles are doing well and the Nats are doing well for the expectations that
they are. And listen, I know we're all football right now. You guys, I know you guys talk about a lot of stuff. Listen, I am a huge believer in what the Nationals have done and are doing. James Wood is an absolute monster. He is a 5-tool prospect. Not a lot of people talk about that. I believe he is a 5-tool prospect. James Wood is absolutely fantastic. Love him. Hassel's had a tough year, but I love me some do-rag Rob, aka Bobby Barrels. Robert Hassel.
Bobby Barrels.
He is a guy, just give him a little bit of time.
Yep.
I mean, Elijah Green, the strikeout rate was pretty bad, in the beginning, but he's still super young. A lot of people don't realize that. I mean, Cruz is just taken by storm. He's already a top 5 prospect, and the kid just got drafted. Mackenzie Gore, I got to see pitch in person. I think he has amazing stuff. Hopefully Cavalli comes back from the injury. I think, CJ Abrams, who I said I believe is going to be a potential, multi-year all-star guy. I think he has shown amazing progression from the beginning of the year to where he is right now. I think he can be an all-star, no question about it. I love CJ Abrams. So I'm excited for what the Nationals. I think they got a great haul for Juan Soto. I think, management-wise, they do a great job over there. I think that, obviously Martinez and Rizzo are going to get the extensions. So, shout out to the Nats. I think they have a lot of really good young talent, and that talent is going to turn over a lot quicker than what it took for the Orioles talent to turn over, because a lot of that talent they were getting via from the farm system, building them up, whereas the Nats got all that talent that was already kind of in that level of going to be playing within either immediately or within the next 2 years. So it's going to be exciting for them.
Yeah. Absolutely. I'm excited about the Nats for sure. All those guys. And you didn't even mention Brady House.
Yeah, who is one of their top a lot better this year than last year. He's another guy that's made a lot of progression. And you can't forget they still have Vaquero. He's probably 18 years old, coming from Cuba. So, they still got Christian Vaquero. So they got
Juan Soto's brother. Let's not forget that. They signed Soto's brother.
I do a lot of baseball prospecting. So I'm big into the minor leagues guys. I watch all these guys progress throughout the year, and
it's fun.
I'll tell you what, man. If Jackson Holiday gets that call up in September, boy, it's going to be exciting.
Yeah, I might go Sunday. I might go to the Orioles on Sunday.
I mean, listen, I love Camden Yards. Camden Yards is, it's a. But I tell you, we went to the National Stadium. Authentic and I, we went for the Nats Orioles series earlier in the year. That's when I got to see Mackenzie Gore. I always enjoy National Stadium.
Yeah,
they did
it's
a really
good part of town.
there.
All that. Yeah.
Yeah, and they gave us a bunch of free food at the end of that game.
Oh,
Have
really?
you been to a game yet though this year?
I'm a season ticket holder.
Okay,
for the Nats. I mean, a partial. Not
my first game. With the new pitch clock was super weird.
There's no time to go get food.
Wait. It's like the 7th inning. I feel like we've been here for 45 minutes. What's going on? So, it's going to be an interesting year. So, shout out to the Nats. They've already exceeded their win total from last year, right?
Yep. Yeah. They absolutely have. They've exceeded all expectations this year. All right, so shout out to everybody who has checked in today with episode 135 of Ref the District. We had Luke and Michael and TJ Nasty for you, Kevin the PRF, of course, Gus Bus is always here, Michael Stahl, Trey Huff, Will's in here, Roger, Authentic stopped by for a little bit, Luke, Allison, Warren, PCC, all kinds of folks that were in today. We appreciate all of you all. Make sure that you hit that like button for sure. Tell your friends all about it. But before we go, Beard, I want you to plug your show, Authentic in the Beard, real quick.
Yeah, so for those of you that don't know, we have a channel called Authentic in the Beard. It's awesome because Authentic and myself, we have known each other literally our entire lives. So he's always been a Giants fan. I've always been a Washington fan. So we really look at football from, a different perspective. We try our best not to be homers. We slip it in every once in a while, but we break down the NFC East. Obviously, we focus heavy on Washington and the Giants, but we break down Eagles and Cowboys. We really try to focus in on that because it is as a fan of an NFC East team, it's very important, obviously, because majority of your games, a quarter of your schedule is against those teams. So it's always important to kind of look at those teams. And we also do a fantasy and betting show every Sunday. So we do 4 streams a week, and then we're working on a lot more pre-recorded content this year, some short form content. Authentic's already been doing a lot of stuff for the Giants as far as before the season starts, but we're getting ready to start our regularly scheduled programs very shortly. So yes, please, I would really appreciate some more Washington Commanders fans to come over because I get a lot of Giants fans in the chat.
Oh,
but
yeah.
we get a lot of Giants fans, Eagles fans, Cowboys fans. It's a really interesting place because, we try to, spread the love and really just talk football and not just talk smack. So it's a great place to hang out. And I appreciate you guys. I mean, I know I opened the show with it, but, last thing I want to say is I really appreciate you guys. It's super important to have, people like you in this community. We will always support what you guys do. You guys are awesome. I've seen you guys grow so much. It has been awesome to watch. I'm so excited what the future holds for you guys, for this channel. Just continue to keep doing what you're doing and grinding and growing because it's awesome to watch, and you guys are fantastic. It is an honor to be here and share the floor with you two gentlemen, and I really appreciate the 3 of you guys. You guys do a great job managing all of the shows and the content you guys do. So much love,
Man,
and I deeply appreciate
turn
it.
up again.
Appreciate you, Beard.
Yeah, we do appreciate you very much. And as we said also at the beginning of the show, that you are the show that we strive to be. So we appreciate you stopping by as always. Trev, are you good? You ready for we're almost to week 1. We got 2.5 weeks to week 1.
I cannot wait, bro.
Yeah.
I cannot wait.
Have you guys
Absolutely.
already done your predictions have you guys already broken down the schedule and done your predictions?
I mean, we've probably done it like 3 times already.
Yeah, I was gonna say
Right, yeah.
I've looked at it a few times, and I kind of am holding back a little bit until you get closer to the end here.
Yep.
But that first 4-game stretch is going to be very important.
Yep. That first game is going to be super important just because of the other 3 being so difficult.
Yeah. Well,
So,
I mean, a lot of people think Arizona is going to be this really bad team.
Like
but
walkover, yeah.
It could be. It's one of those like
a trap game.
Can we have
almost.
a trap game in the first game?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yep. All right. So again, appreciate everybody. Hit that like button if you get a chance. Make sure you check in with us here at RefTheDistrict as well, because we're putting stuff out every single day, 365. Well, maybe not Christmas and New Year's like that, but pretty much every single day. We appreciate all of you. We appreciate Beard, Trev, and for Nathan, I am the Stoner. And of course, until next time, Trev.
Be a Sam.
Be a Sam. I love it. Be a fan.
Shout out to you, man.